Hey everyone, Grandmaster Ben Finegold. Again, it's Tuesday, March 10th, the day after whose birthday? Whose birthday was yesterday? You know. Well, I always count on you to know. You don't know?
I'm failing.
You're my only hope. No, Bobby Fischer, March 9th, 1943. Okay, Joe Biden was asked by a reporter yesterday, do you know whose birthday it is? And he said, Bobby Fischer, March 9th, Ricky Tikki Tavi Dickety 3. So he was right. Complicated joke. Nobody got it, including nobody at home. Okay, so today's lecture of great players of the past is Lev Alburt, because I was going to do somebody else, and they were like, Lev Alburt. I'm like, all right. Now, if you remember the last lecture I did 2 weeks ago on the great players of the past, who was that? 2 weeks ago.
I was here when I
Yeah. Now, Yasser Seirawan.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, that's right. And so it's sort of like a U.S. Champions Tour. Lev Alburt came from Soviet Russia, and then he defected to the United States in 1979, later to become three-time U.S. champion. Okay, Albert was an unusual player because he played a little wild and crazy. Okay, his coach was Steve Martin, right? You agree, Oliver? You know why you agree? Because you've heard of Steve Martin, except for one thing.
You haven't heard.
Right, yeah. Okay, and then like in 5 minutes, if I say, who's that guy? He'll be like, I don't know. Okay, so he became an IM in 76, a Grandmaster in 77. And not only did he win the U.S. Championship 3 times, he also authored and or co-authored all these books they listed. Very suspicious. And Albert's still alive. He's 74. Doesn't play chess anymore. Although, if I remember correctly, and I don't, they had some senior nonsense thing in the U.S. a few years ago, and he played. It was some weird match kind of thing. And I was like, Albert, what? Because he hadn't played in a long time. I played him once when I was an IM, and I had black. I think it was the New York Open, and I lost. And when the game ended, he sacked the exchange, and then eventually his position was too good. And I thought it was really complicated. I didn't know who was better, and I was confused. And when I showed the game to my coach, he went, well, you're just getting crushed the whole game. And I was like, oh. And then I looked with an engine many years later, and that was correct. So I didn't understand the game at all. I just got blown off the board. However, not as badly as a couple of the games we're going to look at today. Now, Lev Alburt did 2 things other grandmasters don't do. Okay, he always played the Alekhine with black. And now, there are grandmasters who will play the Alekhine, but he always played it. Other ones play it like once a year. He played it every tournament, every game. You don't know what that is, but you'll learn what it is. And he also played the Benko Gambit a lot. And actually, I remember many years ago, there was like it was in a magazine, and somebody said, what's the longest you ever thought on a move? And I remember Joel Benjamin saying he was playing Lev Alburt, and Albert played the Benko, and Joel played his usual whatever he plays. And Albert had a novelty ready, and something like Joel took 1 hour and 50 minutes for the first 12 moves. So it wasn't like on one move, but it was a series of, yeah. Okay, and then Karen's like, why are you playing so fast? I couldn't believe you said that to him. Okay, so anyway, Lev Alburt you haven't heard of, but let me tell you a long, boring story, because I like stories. Okay, if you thought Yasser was long and boring, so I'm getting better at it. Now, as you all know, if you want to be one of the top men or women in the U.S., being born in this country is not likely. Very unlikely. Okay, however, in the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, you were born in this country. That's what happened. And then, between like 1975 and 2000, a lot of people from other countries came to the U.S. and they're the best chess players. So then we put our head down in shame. Okay, so all we got now is like Shankland. Oh, no, but seriously, most of the top players in the U.S. were born in other countries, and for the women, it's even more, a higher percentage. Okay, the U.S. Women's Championship back in the 70s and 80s, like 2150 was the highest rated player. And now, like 2270 is the lowest rated player. Things have changed. Okay, and Albert was one of the guys who came from, Soviet Russia, and then he beat everybody. And it sort of started, like Pal Benko was the only foreign player here, and he was a candidate. I mean, he was one of the best players in the world. And then we got Shamkovich and Ginjahashvili and Albert, and now, I mean, a lot of the top players are from other countries. And, we have some born here. And because of that, the U.S. got a lot stronger at chess because we had 2 or 3 times as many grandmasters as we used to. So the U.S. championship became stronger. Our Olympic team became more competitive. And open tournaments were really strong. So now you can become a grandmaster. Now you kids are kids. So you're like, man, when I played that guy, he was too good. So I didn't want to play him anymore. So I played that kid that I beat 80 games in a row. Okay. Now, when you're an adult, you would like to play grandmasters so you can become a grandmaster. If everybody you play as an adult is rated 1100, you won't become a grandmaster. So it's actually really good that a lot of people from other countries who were good at chess moved here, so everybody got good. Now everybody's good. Now we got a lot of good players, man. Everybody's strong. Everybody's strong everywhere. Okay, so Albert was one of the first to, come here and beat everybody, and then some. Now, this was before he came, this was in 1977, and he was playing in an international tournament against Vlastimil Hort. Now, some of you who watched my stream, like you, once there was a guy who came here and sat with me. His name's Wesley Berger. Okay, that was about a year ago, maybe more. And he's about 2,300 on a good day, but it wasn't a good day. It hasn't been a good day for like 50 years. Anyway, and when Wesley was 2,300 like 50 years ago, okay, and maybe 60 years ago. And he played Hort, and Wesley actually beat him with the black pieces, and Hort was one of the top 10 players in the world. So we have people who come to our chess club who beat Hort. Hort just played in a tournament in Ireland, and he played Nigel Short, and the game was short. It wasn't Hort, it was short. Okay, that game didn't last long. Okay, and what's funny is when you're a little kid, usually you checkmate your opponent or they checkmate you. Usually, however, in Nigel Short's first 3 games in the tournament I'm talking about, all 3 games ended in checkmate at an international tournament, which is weird. Usually people are resigning, but they don't resign against Nigel. I don't know. Okay, so Albert's black, and he's playing the opening that I mentioned heretofore. What opening is black playing here? It's not the Alekhine, it's the other one. It actually has 2 different names. The Benko Gambit, very good. It's also called, well, that you won't know, the Volga Gambit. So if you live in Europe, well, you're probably not alive anymore, but if you live in Europe and you're alive, I don't know how it's possible, and you have different names for things than we do. When I lived in Europe in 1988 to 1992, I lived in what country? Belgium. And I saw a movie, and I talked to my mom on the phone. She lived in the U.S., and she said, I saw a movie, and I said, I never heard of that movie. And she was telling me about it, and I said, I saw that movie, but it wasn't called that. Things in Europe are called different than things here. That movie you will know, and by you I mean Karen, as Beaches. Remember Beaches? And you guys are like, what's Beaches, right? Yeah, they're like, what are you talking about? I knew you'd know.
It's not good.
And, right, well, when I saw it, it wasn't called that. It was called Forever Friends. I think Beaches is better. Okay, anyway, in Europe, if you say I sack the exchange, they don't know what you're talking about. They don't have the exchange there. Okay, if you say I played the Benko Gambit, they're like, what? It's called the Volga Gambit. If you say I played the Petrov, they're like, what? It's the Russian defense. And I could go on. Okay, so these guys are both European, so I guess it's the Volga Gambit. All right, and what country was Paul Benko from? Anybody? No? No? Is that because you just ate so you don't know? If you just ate, you wouldn't know because you wouldn't be
hungry.
There you go. There's a guy. Yeah, he's from Hungary, obviously. Also, Paul Benko, R.I.P. He died about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, maybe. I think he was in his 90s. Yeah. All right. So you take the pawn because it's a pawn. So you take it. Okay. Now, if I showed you a game where black sacrificed a pawn, you know, because of the internet age and everything, you guys are like, boring. We want to see blood. Okay. And then you better have your masks on. Okay. You're lucky. I'm not going to show you boring games today. Lev Alburt did not play boring chess. Lev Alburt played wild and crazy chess. The problem is when you get in your 50s and 60s, then wild and crazy chess doesn't work against teenagers and 20-year-olds. So once Albert got into his 50s, he's giving chess lessons, but not really playing in tournaments anymore. But he's an exciting player. So, okay, black says thanks for the pawn. G6. And they played some main line. Okay, could be played today. It's normal, you know, opening. Okay, knight B. So black's down a pawn, and black has open files on the queen's side, and black has the nice bishops. And this could even be played today, this kind of position. Okay, rook E1 because the E pawn's pinned, and then knight to D2. Man, he really wants to play E4. Okay. Queen C7, which is a strange move. Rook B1. Usually when the rook's on A1, you could get in trouble here. Your knight could get pinned or you could lose your rook. With the rook on B1, nobody will ever take it until later. Okay, Queen B7. Now here, black's tripled up on the bubble up, which I've almost never said. Black's putting a lot of pressure on the D pawn. And you guys are like, why didn't white play E4 the last 37 moves? They could have. And then black might put his bishop in here because he's giving away. But I would have played E4 because I played rook E1. Now, Hort played B3 and said, take my pawn. I dare you. I double dare you. Okay, because if you take the pawn, there's this terrible pin here. Okay, so if you take, you know, then you got to watch it. Okay, now, Hort is a very strong grandmaster, top 10 in the world. I don't think Albert was ever top 10 in the world, but he's pretty good. And Hort plays all positions well, but mainly Hort is a technician. Hort wants to get a better position and then grind you down. So he's playing very boring. It's like, I'm going to play bishop b2, I'm going to play e4, and I'm up a pawn, and I'll win in 1,000 moves. And Lev Alburt's like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to sack everything and confuse you. And I don't care what the engine says, because it's 1977. So the engine don't say nothing. And there were chess computers in 1977, and they weren't good. There's good and there's no good. They were no good. It's handheld. Okay. So Albert, very surprisingly, took that pawn. And normally, you don't want to have your knight pinned to your queen and rook. That's dangerous. But he said, well, I'm threatening your knight. I can defend my knight. And if you attack my knight, you're not pinning it anymore. So I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm good.
Yeah.
And he got his pawn back. So he's not down a pawn anymore. Okay? So the game really became pandemonium at this point. Right, Oliver? Yeah. So he took. Knight F1, always retreat. Now this is the kind of move, and I remember I was on my stream last night, and I made a move like this, and I told the audience my opponent's not going to see the threat. So that move is actually an attacking move, even though it's a retreat, because it unleashes the latent potential of the queen on D1. Right? Exactly. So you see how now the queen on D1 is attacking the knight on D5. And his idea is he can keep attacking it, knight E3, and keep attacking this knight. And that knight's pretty pinned. Okay? Now, very strange attacking move. He retreats to the first rank. Everything's on the first rank. Very suspicious, but this is pretty good. Okay. Now, when you watch chess commentary, and you do, one of the top commentators in the world, who I lectured on 2 weeks ago, is... Remember I just said his name like 5 minutes ago? And you're like, yeah, that was that guy. Anybody remember? You. Yasser. Now, when Yasser does chess commentary, it's not the highest level, and that's intentional. Yasser's not doing commentary for 2700s. Yasser's doing commentary for you guys. So he says things like, ooh, that pawn's hanging, and that square is weak, and I don't like that, and his queen shouldn't be there. And at 2700, when they do analysis, they analyze 10, 20 moves deep. Yasser analyzes one move deep and says, I don't like that. And then the engine says, no, it's mate and 12, it's fine. And then Yasser's like, yeah, but I'm not giving commentary for 2700, so leave me alone. Okay, so without doing any commentary of variations, Yasser would like white here, because Yasser would just keep showing this over and over again and say that's good for white. The engine might say, what about this 35 move variation? Okay, and when players are this good, they're analyzing a long way ahead and trying to figure out what's going on. Okay, and that's what Alburt was good at. As he played knight c3, now both queens are attacked, confusing the audience. Okay, Mikhail Tal would be proud. And Hort took the queen, and now Alburt surprised the audience. What move did Lev Alburt play? Remember, it has to surprise us. You.
Knight takes c2.
That would surprise me. Knight takes where?
Knight takes e2.
Oh, e2. That's good, because that does surprise me. Good. It's not right, but it surprised me. Yeah. Normally, when somebody takes your queen, you take their queen. Normally.
Oh, okay.
But then, your rook's hanging, You. No.
Knight takes rook.
You.
Bishop takes b7.
Bishop takes b7. Okay. Now, black is down a queen for a piece. So, if Justin was here, he'd be like, why does black have a piece? Man, that's a complicated joke. There's two people in the world to get that joke, me and Justin. All right. So, normally white would be winning, material speaking. However, white has a problem. Everything is attacked. This is attacked. This is attacked. And if you're a small child, this is also attacked. They're like, oh, we forgot the A pawn. Sorry. Okay. Now, problem is, if you defend the rook with your queen, which seems like a reasonable idea. In fact, I think he did. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you play the obvious knight takes rook, then white plays queen takes knight. But instead, black played your favorite German word, a Zwischenzug. You.
Bishop e4.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that.
This is why I like to sacrifice the exchange, because I can show you dozens and dozens of Grandmaster games where in the opening and middle game, the bishops and the knights are doing a lot more than the rooks. None of the rooks are very impressive. The bishops and knights for black are pretty impressive. Okay, now he played queen e3. The gawking rabble on the internet, they think after queen c4, white has the advantage. They don't like queen e3. Okay, and they think queen e3 is a bad move. And he played bishop d4, attacking the queen again. Man, that's some, great players of the past. See? Okay, so he moved his queen away, and he took that. Now, materials virtually equivalent. Black has a rook and a bishop for a queen. That's close. And these white pieces aren't too active, and this pawn's attacked 1 billion times.
Yeah.
That pawn's attacked more than you realize.
No.
How many do you realize?
3.
Yeah, good. I think you guys could count to 3. Okay, so black's got a lot going on. White doesn't have a lot going on. All right, he played a3, saving his pawn. Bishop a2, trying to win that pawn. Defends the pawn. Attacks the pawn again. So all these guys are pretty good. They're all attacking all of white's pawns. And what's that all about? Terrible. Okay, b4. Might as well get something for his pawn. Okay, and now if you were a mathematician, which you're not, you would say material is equal because when you were a chess beginner, you were told a rook is worth 5 and a minor piece is worth 3 and a pawn is worth 1, and you were also told a queen is worth 9. Somebody told you that. So actually, material equality has been established, sort of. But more importantly, whose pieces are more active?
Black.
Yeah, black's pieces are all good. These pieces, boo. Okay. So black sacrificed his queen, and then he kept attacking the white queen, and along the way he was taking minor pieces. Now, when you sacrifice your queen and you win, everybody says how great you are. However, if you sacrifice your queen 20 games and you lose 19 of them, and you don't show your people you know those 19 games, then you're like, hey, I sacrificed my queen and I won. Like, wait a minute, well, those other games you lost. I forgot about those. So the reason Albert was a top player is when he did play wild and crazy, usually he won because he was a great understanding of tactics and piece activity and putting pressure on his opponent, making his opponent have a tough time. That's not something Hort wanted. Hort wants to have the white pieces and beat you in a boring game. It's not a boring game. Okay, knife f3, attacks the queen, queen h3. I guess you can't play queen h4 because the rook's on b4. Attacks the queen again, queen f1, setting up for the next game. Man, black's pretty active, right? Knight g1. The truth hurts. Now, what would my Indian friend Vishy Anand say about white's position? He would say white can do Vishwanathan. Man, yeah, that's just really active pieces for black. You dream of a position like that. Okay. Then he played king h3, running away. Very suspicious. Not good at running away. Okay, now you gotta watch that, right? So like black could go here if it was his move, or he could go here now. Man, the truth hurts. All right, and then he resigned, I would say a bit too late. That's what I would say. Usually when you see things like that, it's because there was a time control, like 40 moves in 2 hours, and then this would be move 40. That's usually when you see that kind of silliness. So that's the kind of player Albert was. Albert played wild and crazy, aggressive, and he played his own. He played the Benko Gambit, and he played Alekhine defense, and he's like, that's what I play. You don't like it, too bad. And a lot of lower-rated players have these very aggressive opening systems, and then they're like, excuse me, why does Grandmaster A, B, and C play all these boring openings? How come they don't play crazy like I do? Okay, we look at the Grandmaster games, they're playing like Berlin, they're playing the Petrov, and they're playing as boring as they can. And all the games are draws. And then back in the 70s and 80s, they played a little more aggressively. Now, this was a perfect kind of style for an American. And here's the reason. Between 50, gotta say something, and 2000, that sounds good. If you played in Europe, you were probably playing in a round robin, which means everybody plays everybody. There's 10 players, and they're all really good. And then, try to win a couple games and try not to lose any games. That's what happens now at the top level. However, in the United States, we didn't have a lot of that. We had a lot of go play in that 300-player tournament. Now, if you play in the World Open, the New York Open, the US Open, Foxwoods, the National Open, the Chicago Open, and I can go on, you get 2 wins and 7 draws, you didn't win any prize money. You're coming in 38th place and you lose 10 rating points. However, if you have 6 wins and 2 losses and a draw, that's better than 2 wins and 7 draws, still not winning any prize money. And you're winning and losing a lot because you're playing more aggressively. you got to win an American Swiss's. You can't go to an American Swiss that's 9 rounds and get 9 draws. Okay? So sometimes when Europeans come here, they play their usual solid chess, and then they don't win any prize money. And then the wild and crazy American, they get lots of wins, and they win a prize. The next tournament, they get lots of losses, and they don't win a prize. And the next turn, they get lots of wins, and so forth. So they're having good tournaments and bad tournaments, and the Europeans are solid. Lev Alburt, who you can see is playing a little crazier than usual, when he moved to America, fit right in. He's like, yeah, wild and crazy, no draws. So he's winning the U.S. Open, he's winning the World Open, the New York Open, the U.S. Championship, and then when he has a bad tournament, we don't talk about that. Okay? And there are players we make fun of, like Anish Giri, draw all his games. If he's playing in the U.S. and he's playing an Open tournament, you can't draw all your games. He would win a lot of games because he'd be much higher than his opponents, but he can't play his usual brand of, yay, I equalize with black. That doesn't work. You got to win with black. Okay, now you know why Fischer was good. I wonder why Fischer was good. Okay, now let's see. We get rid of what do we do? Notation, and then we do full screen. It's the most fun I can have. And this, and then this, and then I still got to do one more. Flipboard. Okay, now this is Maxim Dlugy. He's my compatriot because we played in the U.S. Junior Championship together in 1984. And I have a funny story about that. Not too funny. In 1984, the U.S. Junior Championship was in your favorite city in California because you heard of it.
Seattle.
They haven't heard of it. Called Ojai. O-J-A-I. Okay? It's near, 40 miles from Ventura, maybe. They haven't heard of Ventura either, but, Karen probably likes the song. I don't know. Okay, right? Is it America? Who sings Ventura Highway?
Yep.
America? The kid's like, yep. No. Okay, so in Ojai, Dlugy played in the junior, and he was the highest rated. And after 4 rounds, he had half a point. That's not good. And he came in tied for 4th place, and no good. Then a couple months later, he played in the U.S. Championship and tied for 3rd place and went to the interzonals for the World Championship. That was better. Okay, so Dlugy's white against Lev Alburt, and Dlugy's from the Soviet Union also, another top player who moved. Although I think when Dlugy moved to the U.S., he wasn't so good yet. I think he got good in the U.S. Okay, so let's have a look. Shocking, another Benko gambit. Okay, and F3 is actually a line that I play with white. I play in this position. Okay, and I play E4, and I would play knight A3, and here Dlugy played a move I would not play, especially after seeing this game. Although I must admit, I've never had the position after E6. If black plays D6 or castles or takes on B5, I have had that position. The reason you play knight A3 is the other knight's going to go to C3. That's the usual method. E6, I don't know. E6 is very aggressive because black's already sacked a pawn, and now he wants to open the center. And Dlugy's like, I don't want to open the center. He goes here. We'll keep it closed. Okay? Castles. Queen C. Now, Queen C2 seems like just a terrible move to me. Terrible. Okay, in chess, you get your bishops and knights out, and you castle. And white's made a lot of pawn moves. Nobody can count that high. White's made a lot of pawn moves. And black, developed and castled. And white didn't do that. So Queen C2, that doesn't seem very helpful in what white wants to do. That seems just bad. Okay, Queen B6. Now this pawn's not defended as much. Attacks the C5 pawn. And, white doesn't have a lot of development. King F2. Frankly, terrible. Well, what do you want him to do? Yeah. Defends his bishop. Yeah. Bishop B7. A4. Terrible. So, Dlugy didn't develop his pieces. Now, of course, Dlugy might develop his pieces later. Then he's up a pawn, and he has a passed A pawn. I mean, black did sack a pawn. Okay, now remember I told you Albert was a little aggressive. Okay, and now he played a shocking move. You're too young to answer. You.
Knight b4.
Shocking. I don't remember what he played. Knight b4, I think, gives this pawn away, right? Because this is attacked twice. Bathroom's down the hall. You.
Knight takes c4.
Close enough. Now, I looked at this game several hours ago, so maybe he did play knight b4. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure this is where he played crazy. Oh, I'm wrong. He defended his pawn to play knight b4. Very good. Okay, then he played crazy. Bishop takes e4.
Wow.
Similar to knight takes e4. I think he could have played bishop takes e4 the previous move, but now white's king is more trapped. When white plays the obvious move,
Pawn takes.
yeah, and now black plays the obvious move. Well, not obvious for you. You.
Knight g4.
Knight g4. I hope you weren't going to say that. Yeah, knight g4. No. Now he played knight b4. Haha, he got you. That was good. And then knight g4. Yeah. So this it's not good. It's not good. Yeah, that's yeah. So black punished white for white playing d4, c4, d5, f3, e4, d6, a4. Those are all pawn moves. And then black has all his pieces out. Pretty good too. Okay, so he has to play king f3 to defend his bishop. He has to take back. Check.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay, discovered check. Man, the truth hurts. Okay, moves his king. Bishop h6, threatening queen e3 check. Now, I've said this many, many, many times in my lectures, my streams, in my dreams. Okay, one time I was having surgery and I was saying it then, and they were like, what? Because I was getting a tracheotomy. When you have opposite colored bishops, which they do, it's well known the attacking side is to be favored because this bishop can't stop that bishop. I control the dark squares. The same thing can be said when you have the two bishops. If I have two bishops and you have a bishop and a knight, one of my bishops you don't have. If I have a dark squared bishop and a light squared bishop, whichever one you don't have, that's the one I'm going to attack you on. Obviously, queen e3 check's pretty annoying. And the reason you find moves like that is you have a dark square bishop and your opponent does not. Now, how does white stop queen e3 check? The answer is actually pretty funny. I thought it was funny. It stops queen e3 check. It's just a normal, you defend e3. You.
Well, I have two moves. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what? You ever heard the term 0 for 2? Oh, yeah. What is it? Yeah.
Actually, I have one move.
All right.
So it's...
Remember, he's right twice a day.
Queen d3.
What's that?
Queen d3.
It wasn't one of those times. Queen d3 is risky because I take your queen two different ways. You agree, right? Yeah, you with the right answer.
Knight f4.
I mean, that doesn't defend e3, but it stops queen e3, so you sort of got me. Yeah, it doesn't work, but that's probably just as good as what he did. No, it's probably like almost as good as the movie he made. Good night. After knight f4, I guess I could take it. If you take back, I have queen f2 check. That looks annoying. That looks terrible. The bathroom's down there. You with the wrong answer again.
Queen c1.
I thought I was gonna say queen c1. I really did. I almost just said it. Yeah. Then you gotta be careful. Yeah. All right. And then Oliver finally with the right answer. Rook a3. That defends e3. Okay. Now there's a term you've heard, but you never knew what it meant, and now it's gonna happen. Then you'll know what it means. And the term is, they've never heard the term. Interference. Now, if you claim you know what it means, then you'll tell me what move black made. Because you know what interference is, so now you know what the move is. Come on, Karen, you can do it. She's like, I can.
Knight d3.
Yeah, that's not the move, but that is interference.
Okay.
Right. That's right. Now you know what interference is. And in fact, knight d3 reminds me of the famous game, I'm sure it reminds all of you, Aroni Anand from Vaikanze, I don't know, 2013 or 14. You know, as well as the famous game that preceded it, Rottweiler Rubinstein, which I believe was 1907. I could be wrong about that. Okay, you.
C3.
Right. Yeah. Also knight d3, except he could sack the exchange.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That would, and then queen, and you keep defending e3. Yeah, now that blocks the rook on a3, so I'm going to play queen e3. Now, if all you're concerned about in your life is queen e3, and you magically stop it, I don't see how, then, man, this is also annoying. You gotta watch it. I got other moves too. But, okay, so he plays knight f4, because you suggested it, right?
Oh.
Who suggested knight f4?
Oh yeah, I did.
No, yeah. And then he did what I said. Remember I said takes and queen f2 check? Oh. Man, the truth hurts. g5 threatening g4 mate. Yeah, I'm serious. Probably should stop g4 mate. Exactly.
Resigned.
What?
Resigned.
That would stop it. You.
Queen g1. Sacrificing the pawn. That's
Yeah, but when you're playing Grandmaster, giving a queen away for a pawn isn't the best. They usually win then. And by usually, it's worse than getting checkmated. You.
bishop e2.
What are you, him? Do you know what the horizon effect is? Oh, snap.
Yeah.
You do? No, you don't. Well, then I take your bishop, and that what did that do? Right. So he played g3. That blocks the queen from h4. So when you play g4, then I have king h4. See? Tricky. That's why he's a grandmaster, and, you're not. Okay. Queen f6 check. One legal move.
King
Queen g6 check. One legal move.
back.
Yeah. And now, this move was recommended by George Thorogood. You.
King g7.
Right. You know why George Thorogood played King G7? Because he wanted to move it on over. Right? Oliver's like, what?
Oh yeah.
All right. Now, there's only one way to stop Rook H8, and it was suggested earlier by the audience. Resigns. Yeah. Now, White did a good job that game. He was a minimalist. He didn't ever move these pieces. However, he did make a lot of king moves. Okay? And that guy was like a candidate for the world championship. But, I mean, he enters zonals, U.S. championship, came in third, winning the World Open, New York Open, Grandmaster. And then it didn't look too good there. Now, the important thing to remember is the guy who has black, the guy that we're talking about this lecture, Lev Alburt, he doesn't play 15 moves of theory and then get the e5 square and then win an isolated pawn and then beat you 90 moves in the endgame. That's what I do. Okay? Lev Alburt plays crazy chess. His opponent says, what's happening? And then he checkmates you. Okay? And Lev Alburt, 3-time U.S. champion, won the U.S. championship 3 times because he was good at playing that style. And as you can see, his opponent not quite as good. That didn't play so good. Right? Okay, last game, double or nothing. See, we got him again. Viktor. Now, what's funny about Viktor Kupreichik is he plays the same way. Okay, the same deviled egg. Okay, don't sue me, Futurama. Of course, Albert's always black. Not sure why that is. Yeah. And this. Viktor Kupreichik is one of the craziest playing GMs ever. Plays crazy. So 2 crazy GMs play. That's good for the audience. It's not good for the rating. But now this was in the Soviet Championship First League, 1974, and I don't think that's the super term. I think it's like one below. Okay, now remember I told you he plays the Benko, and what else did I tell you he plays? Alekhine. What move is that? What move does black play? That's the Alekhine. Anybody? Anyone? No? Nothing? Knight f6. The Alekhine defense. And Kupreichik played a line most GMs won't play because it's the craziest. The 4 pawns attack, confusing the audience. Okay, he pushes all of his pawns, all 4 of them. Okay, and that's the 4 pawns attack. It's not played by most grandmasters. It's pretty exciting. Okay, take. Knight c6, defend the pawn. So white has this massive center, and black says, I'm going to take your center. Then white says, no, you're not. So then we have an interesting battle of ideas. Now, I must admit, I've seen a lot of Alekhines. I've never seen white play d5 so early. On the other hand, the way they play the Alekhines, the way I was playing it, you play queen d7 and you castle queenside, putting pressure on the d line. Bishop e7, I think, is a little unusual. Now, Lev Alburt is the father of the Alekhine in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. He was the guy playing it. And Kupreichik is going to try to refute a move that he thinks is wrong. So if he thinks black should play queen d7 in long castle, and you don't do that, I'm going to play d5 and crush you. Okay, so the question is that the greatest center ever, or is it going to collapse? Not only am I threatening this pawn, knight c2 check looks pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. So it looks like Kupreichik's gone mad. Why is he letting black do this? Knight d4, stopping knight c2 check, and attacking the bishop on f5. Always retreat, which he did. e6, looks like black's just getting run over. Bishop c6. So white's center's gone. There's no more center pawns. This pawn is either good or bad. I'll tell you in a few moves. If black takes it, it's not good. If white plays queen f7 mate, then it's good. Okay, so we don't know yet. And black's pieces are very active. Conversely, white has a lot of pieces here because white was busy moving his pawns, trying to punish black. Now, the late, great Tony Miles, one of Karen's favorite players for obvious reasons. And those reasons are only obvious to Karen because he likes to lay on the gurney. Okay. And Tony Miles liked to play knight c6 with black very early. Move 1, move 2, and lots of openings. And he said, I knew him pretty well. He said, when people tried to crush me with d4, d5 like this, then I won. When they played really boring, then I was in a worse position. Okay, so here, white's just trying to crush black. d5, e5, e6, just run them over. Then when it doesn't work, then you get in trouble because you just give it all away immediately. Okay, and these guys are both wild and crazy players, so you don't have a lot of draws. People complain now, those grandmasters are always drawing. They play 800 moves of theory and they're too good. Well, they wouldn't draw every game if they played like this. Okay, you can play crazy if you want, they just don't want to anymore. Okay, queen g4, threatening queen takes g7, obviously. Bishop h4 check. The problem is, the obvious answer is g3, but that hangs your rook on h1. It's hard to find another move that makes any sense. So he played g3. I mean, I don't know what other move you wanted to play.
You could have played bishop f2.
Yeah, but then I could take your bishop and then castle with check. And your king's still running around. Okay, g3, takes, castles. And then if you castle, then I castle. So white's down the exchange, but that looks pretty annoying. And this bishop doesn't look very good. That looks pretty good. This looks pretty good for white. So very tricky. Queen f6, getting off of that file. Bishop g5. Sacks his queen. If you don't sack your queen every game, why would I lecture on you? Okay? Sack that queen. Black's already up in exchange. He wants to get an attack. And he played e7. He didn't take the queen. No taking queens. Now you can see, if he does take the queen, this is pretty dangerous for white. I'm scared.
Stop, Ben.
I am. What would you do if you were white? Be scared?
No.
Yeah. Now my opponent sacks his queen. I'm taking it, but I don't like white's position here. Okay, white's got 2 rooks for a queen, or black has 2 rooks for a queen, and black has a lot of attack. So instead he played e7, confusing the audience. Knight takes a2, really confusing the audience. Okay, and I always tell my students, and they don't listen, if your opponent has a check or a capture, you have to see it, and that's both. That's a check and a capture. So you have to see it. Well, if white doesn't take the knight, good. If white does take the knight, which he did, now we have queen c4 check, saving our queen and attacking everything, because the knight's not on c3 anymore. So he goes back, and then rook f1, he's still attacking. h5, c5, and unfortunately, black is just up material here, so he just starts taking everything. And that bishop on h5 is doing a good job. Yeah. And white said, where'd all my pieces go? Well, he didn't take that queen on f1. He still would have had only a queen for 2 rooks, and his king would have been exposed. And what's funny is, normally at the top level, like these guys, when you're white and you lose, you want to lose it a certain way. Like, yeah, I made a mistake, and then he equalized, and then he got the advantage, then he played better than me, then I got in time trouble, and then I lost by 1 tempo. Okay? You don't want to lose like that. You have white, and you're like, where's all my pieces? Like, I'm a grandmaster. So players today, when they have white, they're so afraid of these kinds of things happening that there's too many draws. They didn't have a lot of draws back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s because people didn't have their engines on all day while they slept. Man, we could have a lot of engines going here, a lot of computers. And you see a lot of grandmaster games like this from a long time ago when the technique wasn't as good, their opening prep wasn't as good, their calculation wasn't as good, and you get like a beat down. And it doesn't mean necessarily that Albert was a better player, but he was this game. This game, it got very complicated and white fell apart. Easy to do. And for a lot of people, especially in American tournaments where you have to win a lot, if you have a choice of, I'm slightly worse, but I can probably draw, or the computer says I'm much worse, but nobody understands what's going on, well, you play like that, then you win a lot of games. And this is why people like Hikaru Nakamura play the King's Indian. He's like, well, I need to win this game, so I'm playing the King's Indian. And if I don't need to win the game, maybe I'll play the Slav and I'll suffer a little and draw. Okay? And Albert always played the sharpest, most complicated, and those were his openings. Nowadays, you could go to your computer and type in your opponent's name, if you're a grandmaster, and you're like, oh, that grandmaster plays this opening, and he only plays this variation. You get your 6 laptops with 6 different engines to look at it for 3 days while you go out shopping. Then you go play the guy and just crush him. Back then, 1974, did Viktor... Oh, Lev Alburt. Let me see what my computer says he plays. Okay, so if he's playing Alekines every game and the Benko Gambit every game, how do you know? Did you read over the internet? The kids are like, why not? Internet was really slow in 1974. It was just terrible, right? And there's a book you never heard of called The Informator, right? The Informant. Even he haven't heard of it. We had a guy come in yesterday. He wanted or it was 2 days ago. He wanted that Informant because he's an older guy. And every 6 months, The Informant came out and they had all the Grandmaster games in it. And you were like, The Informant. Now you just watch the games live with 800 Grandmaster commentators. Okay, so if Lev Albert's playing an opening that's considered unsound by a lot of people, but he's played 1,000 games with it, and he has novelties and he's ready, then with the black pieces, he's winning a lot of games against other Grandmasters. Okay, good strategy. Nowadays, that's a tough strategy because everybody knows what you're doing. Go to the internet, find out 1 second what they're doing. Oh, he plays this tricky line in the King's Indian. I'll get ready for that. Okay? And I have my own stories, but I'll have to wait many years till I'm a great player of the past. I'll have to start playing better too, because right now I'm just a player of the past. That's good. All right, thanks for watching the video. This was Great Players of the Past, March 10th on Lev Alburt, former U.S. champion, 3-time U.S. champion. Please like and subscribe and buy our merch. Do as I say. For the Chess Club and Scholastic Center of Atlanta, this is Grandmaster Ben Finegold. Bye.